Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it is Silicon Steve Valley. This is High Spots and Cheap Pops, and I am so happy to come to you. It's January 2nd, 2021. New Year off to a fairly good start. Hope you guys are having a fantastic 2021 so far. Wanted to talk about, as you can see behind me, this beautiful man. Look how beautiful he is. Bruce Prichard. As you may know him from, of course, the WWE. He right now is probably beyond Vince, or before Vince, is the most powerful man in terms of the creative process and what goes on television on Raw and SmackDown. So he's a pretty big deal. You knew that already, but I just wanted to set this up. And this is going to sound like I'm going to be absolutely destroying Bruce Prichard in this. First and foremost, he's one of the most creative minds the business has ever seen. But he does a lot of shit too, which he admits. So, but that being said, I absolutely love Bruce Prichard. So this is going to sound harsh, because what we are going to talk about is a situation where Bruce Prichard seems to have a philosophy that he came out and said. He was on the Sam Roberts podcast, wrestling podcast, earlier this week. I have not seen the full content, but I wanted to talk about this quote that this character said on the Sam Roberts podcast, which I find very alarming and not at all surprising. The quote was exactly, "People don't like change." Well, actually, let me talk like Bruce Prichard. I can do a little character too. So people don't like change. So they'll focus on what they don't understand. So it's, I don't understand it. I don't like it because it's not comfortable. Now, I didn't hear him say it, but that's kind of probably how he said it. So that being said, we got a situation with Mr. Prichard. And let's examine what he said. People don't like change. He's right. And by the way, I'm not saying that what he said is not wrong for at least a portion or a percentage of the internet wrestling community and wrestling fans in general. I'm not saying that there's nobody out there that doesn't fit that exact bill of what he's saying. But that's not most. That's not a majority, and that's a problem. They'll focus on what they don't understand, so I don't understand it. I don't like it. That is true. That is very true. If more people got Matt Hardy's, broken universe, maybe he would have been more popular on the when he in the mainstream. He was extraordinarily popular in 2016, what have you. But they gave it a crack in AEW and WWE. It's not playing anymore. So maybe a lot of people didn't understand it. It was brilliant, but perhaps it was a little bit beyond your casual wrestling fan. So maybe that's the attitude he has. He's talking about that wrestling fan. And that's not wrestling fans. That's WWE fans. That's the big difference here. If you're a wrestling fan, you've been bitching and crying, and I'm one of them. You've been bitching and crying about WWE for 15 years, 16, 17, ever since they had this new creative process. They brought in writers. They basically turned the professional wrestlers into pop stars because they really don't have much input on their character. They don't have much input on what they have to say on television. Very much like, Britney Spears or one of those girls. They didn't write any of their fucking songs. They didn't have any input on the music. They just sang and did exactly what the company wanted them to do. And that's what a lot of the professional wrestlers in WWE do, the sports entertainers. And a lot of professional wrestlers hate that. So there you go. So I get where Bruce is coming from to that, but there's that wrestling fan like me who checked out for over a decade when John Cena and Randy Orton were on top. I wasn't watching. I turned it on every once in a while, because that's when this creative process started. Now, some really great indie stars came up and made WWE more interesting, particularly Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Brody Lee. Still talking about that guy. and tons more. And the list goes on. And AJ Styles later. Now you see NXT always. NXT's built on indie stars now. You know what I mean? They're not built on these great athletes that they find. They're built with the Adam Coles and the Kyle O'Reillys of the world, and the Prince Devitt's of the world. Independent stars that learn and sharpen their teeth outside of WWE, and then that's why they're the cream that rises to the top. But Bruce is right. A lot of people hate change because it's not comfortable. And then a lot of people just stare at their TV screen every week on WWE no matter what they do. There are those fans. When you are that good, or you are at the top of the heap of your business for 4 or 5 decades since WWE has been going around. But really, since Vince took over, there's a lot of brand loyalty there. There's a ton of brand loyalty. I don't have loyalty to entertainers. I don't. And this is the reason why. If they connected with me on an emotional level, sure. But that's the performers. WWE is a company. It's a brand. It's not the emotion. So for me, look, I think if you're an entertainer, you're in the service industry. If you're not entertaining me anymore, you're not going to get my money. And that's why I don't watch Raw. I fast forward it. I see Drew McIntyre and I check out. And maybe The Fiend. And whatever they're doing with Randy Orton. So, I get through an episode. I'll watch. If I do watch Raw, DVR it, and I get through it in 15 or 20 minutes. SmackDown, it's taken me a lot longer to get through because they're doing better stuff, particularly with Roman Reigns. But I'm going on a tangent now. But the fact remains here is with Pritchard is basically, he cannot characterize wrestling fans like that. And, well, let me rephrase. We can't hear him characterize wrestling like that and expect any kind of change. They have their formula. They are comfortable. They don't like change. It's not the fans that don't like fucking change. They don't like change. Remember that big change, the Attitude Era? We're not going to. Vince McMahon comes out. We're not going to insult your intelligence anymore. We don't subscribe to good guy versus bad guy. That's passe. And he's using all these other awesome big words that make you think he's smarter than he is. Vince is brilliant. I'm kidding. That was a big change. Another big change. We have been begging, pleading on our gosh darn knees, please turn Roman Reigns heel. You have given this guy the keys to the kingdom when he really, not that he didn't deserve it from his performance and the work he's put in, but you pushed him without giving him really super interesting stories to tell. And fans resented that. They resented it. It insulted our intelligence. Once again, our intelligence wasn't, Vince talked 23 years ago in introducing the Attitude Era, says that that's insulting our intelligence. When you hear people don't like change, they will focus on what they don't understand. And so we're not going to try to move our brand forward or evolve our brand and the way we do our creative processes. That is a dangerous, dangerous way to think. And it's very telling that Monday Night Raw is probably the worst it has ever been in the history of its program in terms of viewership. And it continues to go down. SmackDown is doing great, so I don't want to paint this dark picture that Bruce isn't doing a great job. What they're doing on SmackDown and what Roman Reigns is doing, this long-term storytelling that is going to keep, and we're going to have another show where I'm talking about that coming up. All the ways they can make this storyline even better and the way they're going to make it better. And this is long-term storyline. What they're doing, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Kevin Owens are involving now, but they also, are going to be involving other people. Goldberg, they're going to ruin it with fucking Goldberg. That's a whole other deal. When I think about Goldberg fighting Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, my blood pressure literally just goes up. It's infuriating if that really happens. But People don't like change. We don't know. We want you to send out 53-year-old Bill Goldberg who couldn't wrestle his way out of a fucking paper bag with scissors in his hands. A wet paper bag with scissors in his hands. And, you're going to put him at the top of a WrestleMania card. Great. Again, it'll be the third time in, 5 years? Bill Goldberg's is one of the people on top of a WrestleMania card. That Bill Goldberg equals that. This quote, people don't like change. They'll focus on what they don't understand. So I don't understand it, so I don't like it because it's not comfortable. That represents bringing Bill Goldberg to fight Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That quote right there. And that is why we have gotten this. Now, by the way, this doesn't come from Bruce Prichard only. This is Vince McMahon talking. Vince McMahon's that is why, exactly why, we have gotten Bill Goldberg at top of the cards. That's why The Undertaker almost had his neck broken, because they had a 53-year-old man who doesn't know how to wrestle anymore drop another man on his head. And they give this guy the keys to the kingdom. I don't care what anyone says, and I don't care how great that match was with John Cena. The Fiend is not the same character since he was beaten in less than 3 minutes by Bill Goldberg. If Goldberg does come back, I want Roman Reigns to beat him in 3 minutes. It's not going to happen, but that just is the thing that we have to be it's so frustrating as a professional wrestling fan to hear those words. We kind of knew that's what the case was with Vince. We kind of knew it, but to hear those words. So my big thing to WWE fans or wrestling fans who still try to watch WWE and are chasing that fucking dragon for it to be really good again, and particularly Raw. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen because the executive producer for both shows don't think you like change. Don't think you like new things. Even though the biggest change the company has made in terms of creativity has turned Roman Reigns heel. Guess what, Bruce and Vince? If you didn't know, wrestling fans have been begging you guys to turn that motherfucker heel for years. And I'm not, this isn't hyperbole, this is an exaggeration. For years, they wanted this man to turn heel. And then you finally do it. After every wrestling fan, every idiot, swill, mark idiot like myself, screaming, turn him heel, it's going to be better, turn him heel. You do it, and now you're getting the best television from Roman Reigns you've ever got. But we're the ones that are stupid. We're the ones that don't want change. We're the ones. No, Mr. Prichard, with all due respect, and I respect the shit out of you, I think you're amazing. And Vince, again, the most influential man in the history of this business, and he's a genius. All that being said, that attitude, sir, is insulting to our intelligence. It is passé. So I'm going to use the words that Vince used 23 years ago. That attitude, people don't like change. They'll focus on what they don't understand. They'll focus on what they don't understand. I don't understand it. So we don't understand it. We're not going to like it. Well, then as the man who is the creator, make us understand. Tell stories that get us emotionally invested more, like you're doing with Roman Reigns and with Jey Uso. And with Jimmy Uso, he's going to be part of the deal. There's a lot of ways that this great long-term story writing that could have happened 3 fucking years ago, maybe Dean Ambrose would still be there and wouldn't be the biggest star in the world in AEW. That attitude is insulting to our intelligence. That attitude is passé. That is the attitude that has gotten us some shitty WrestleMania main events and some shitty storylines that don't go anywhere, that don't build any characters, just to infuriate people. So, again, I get it. He's right to a certain extent. But he's not right when it comes to real professional wrestling fans. But I've said before, and I'll say it again. When this creative process started 15 something years ago, that's when people started, real wrestling fans, when wrestling fans were turning into Raw, 5, 4, 5, 6 million people at a time, sometimes 3 million minimally. Those people didn't just leave and go and never come back. Well, they didn't come back because the product is sucked. And I don't think if that attitude is going to change, and I'm not going to bring up the obvious one, it's involving Vince. We'll see what happens. He'll be around. He's still kicking and doing great, but he might want to step down, or Father Time calls us all. You know what I mean? So, but I don't want to bring up anything morbid. That's the one thing, though. If Vince has to go away, or if AEW starts becoming the hottest and the biggest program and starts kicking ass to that point. Now, AEW doesn't want to go head-to-head with WWE. So I don't know if that'll ever happen, but if AEW starts doing 2 million people a week, and when AEW starts beating Raw in the ratings, and it's a lot closer than it used to be. If AEW starts beating Raw in the ratings, then maybe they'll change the attitude. But until then, that's not going to happen. Those two things need to happen. Because they don't care what we think or what we love. They only care about money. And they have loyalty to the stockholders. They do not have loyalty to the fans. And they have shown it time and time again. And they even lie to us. They had all the McMahons and Triple H come out on TV a little over 2 years ago and said, we're the authority now. There's going to be some big changes. They brought up Ricochet and Aleister Black. And I would like to ask, what is Ricochet and Aleister Black doing right now, healthy as can be, on this roster? So now, different to 1997, I don't believe a goddamn word that the McMahons tell me when it comes to creative. You don't care about us. You don't care about how we feel. You have arguably the greatest roster in the history of your company, and you are doing some of the worst programming in the history of your company. And it's hard to argue what I just said, folks. You can't argue. You can try. You can't. I'd be like that jerk off with the coffee. Changed my mind. The company went public. In our opinion, stopped mattering. And as long as enough people who have the habit of turning on USA at 8 o'clock every Monday night, and there's a lot of people with that habit, they're going to be viable. But more people start turning into SmackDown that weren't watching before, and more people are going to be turning into AEW or NXT. That's a whole other issue. They better pull that motherfucker out of the mud soon, too. They didn't even draw 600,000 people this past week. I mean, they were going up against AEW's tribute show, but NXT is not doing very well right now. And I'm going to have another rant on that. Why that is stupid that they're even up against AEW. It was a calculated risk that WWE did, but we're going to get into that later. But it was honestly, I try not to get too pissed off anymore at the McMahons, but to even just hear the word or read the words that Pritchard said, saying that people don't like change. Now I got to hear the context of it, but if they don't care about all of us who have a microphone, they don't care about us with our Twitter handles, they don't care about us on social media. If you're watching, they don't give a fuck. They don't. They would literally have Vince McMahon come out and fart on microphone for 3 hours if they thought they'd get the same exact rating. I don't know if Vince would be able to pull it off at his age. I know in his 50s he'd be able to fart for at least 17 minutes. This is an interesting podcast today. It went a little bit longer than I thought. But this is just one of those things that absolutely gets my goat, infuriates me to the point where I just really just get so disgusted with how much I used to love professional wrestling and just stopped watching because it started to suck so bad. And when, Kevin Owens, the Shield came up, Kevin Owens, Wyatt family, I dipped my toe back into the water. Right around the Daniel Bryan Yes movement is when I started to watch more consistently. And I still got through an episode of Raw. If I was taping it, I would get through an episode of Raw in 45 minutes. So, but it was still there. And then I started paying attention more to the independent scene, Ring of Honor, and not TNA as much, but Ring of Honor and more specifically New Japan Pro Wrestling. And there was some really great pro wrestling happening. And that's how I got involved with Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, and all that. And then I really started rooting for them because it seemed like they were coming from a place that all of us fans have been clamoring for literally years. And that's the difference between them and AEW, or AEW and WWE. They're trying to make history, AEW. They're trying to change the game. WWE is just trying to make money, folks. That is the difference. Art versus the art of making money. This has been Silicon Steve Valli for High Spots and She Pops. Here endeth the lesson.